Hello everyone, my name is Nancy Nicholas and I wear a few hats when it comes to my profession. I am an instructional designer for a local healthcare system. I'm also a business owner with the #1 skincare company in North America, Rodan & Fields, but today I'm here representing Leadership Arts and Associates as a creative collaborator, and I'm going to be doing a mini training on communication reboot. I have some friends with me today, so you may hear me ask a question, you may hear someone answer, but I'll make sure you get the information as well. So when you think in terms of communication, the simple definition of communication is transfer of information, really, right? You've got the sender, you've got the message, and you've got the receiver. And you'd think with just 3 elements that it'd be pretty simple, but we all know that sometimes it's not. How many of you have ever had a conversation and walked away or paused for a minute and thought, well, that didn't go very well?
Yes.
Or, why couldn't I get my point across? Or how about, why could I not understand what they were trying to say, right? All of those things are certainly elements that do happen, and sometimes we're just not on the same page. For communication to be effective, in addition to those 3 elements, there's also the element of interpretation. Interpretation of emotions, interpretation of intention of what is being shared. We also have probably all experienced an opportunity where we've had a breakdown in what I intended to say and what was actually received. And how many of you have ever had this happen? Whether it was you or someone else, but how many of you have ever heard these words? No, that's not what I intended.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very, very common. So today we're going to ask you to do a self-focus, really. Internalize, as I talk about this, how does this really, does my communication need a reboot, right? There's 3 elements we're going to talk about. The first one is accepting responsibility of your words. You said them, you should own them, but sometimes we don't always do that. We push the ownership to, well, you didn't hear me right? So that one is going to be resetting ourselves. Identifying words that can trigger an emotion in someone else. So this is recognition, really. What is it that you are saying, whether intended or not, but it elicits an emotion out of someone? And that is recognizing and refreshing. So refreshing is thinking, recognizing, accepting. Could I have said that differently? And then the third one is changing your words so that you change the emotion of the situation. Recharging your words is what we're going to call that one. So, resetting, accepting responsibility. It's also recognizing that there are emotions attached to the words you say. And how many of you have ever heard of the term hot buttons?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So a hot button is really something that triggers an emotion in you. A hot button could be a word, a saying, a phrase. It could also be a behavior. Okay? What are some hot buttons that you all have? And I'll give you an example as you think about yours. I have a customer service background. In managing phone calls related to customer service in any industry that I've worked, a trigger hot button for me is when the customer says, you people. Those hairs back here go, right. It's just, it triggers an emotion in me, and I have to kind of go, okay, right? How about you? Trigger word, hot button?
So one is a behavior.
Okay, behavior.
So when I'm facilitating a group of people, and this happens often, mostly if I don't know the majority of the people in the group.
Sure.
And there's sidebar conversation, so you see the lean in, and that's a trigger for me because I'm wondering, what is it that they're saying?
Yeah.
That's a hot button.
Is it related to what I'm talking about,
right.
First of all, right?
Yes.
Because as a teacher, that has actually, I can remember when that happened for me when I was student teaching in a
Right.
third grade classroom, and I'm like, excuse me, and
Right.
here they were talking about the lesson.
Yes. Yes.
And that makes you feel like
yeah.
this, right? But you don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think they're having a, hey, how was your coffee this morning? How was your drive in?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
that's
So,
one.
behavior, yeah.
Mhm.
Gentlemen, ideas?
I think for
Anything?
me, it's actually kind of a behavior, and it's actually kind of along the same lines. It's when you're speaking, and it almost seems like you can tell by body language that they're not focusing, or
Right.
to me, then it makes it seem like they're ignoring you,
Okay.
and that just really is something that I can't handle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're not giving you your, or you appear that they're not giving you their
Right.
full attention.
And they totally could be, but just from the way that the body language
Yep.
looks.
An interpretation of their
Yes.
body. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Joe, do you have one?
I think I think a lot of it's just topics. I have hot button topics, and when I hear people talking about certain things, like I know to either stay away. A lot of it's like your politics and your major
Yep.
ones, and like
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
you're like, whoa, no, I'm not getting involved with that. 'Cause
Right.
That's not what we're here to do. And
Yeah.
Whatever
Well,
it is.
and another one I just thought of in the workplace could be a hot button for some is negativity.
Mhm.
You know, you've got some people who are always like, no,
Mhm.
and again, for me, that can sometimes elicit a, is there anything that is positive kind of response?
Yeah.
And when I respond that way, it's an emotion.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's an emotional response. Yeah, absolutely. So, what happens when you have the behaviors occurring or the topics that you're hearing? What happens with you? How do you react to it? Whether it's outwardly or just up here in your mind. How do you react?
Kind of mentally like take a shutdown a little bit of, I don't want to get involved with that, so I just kind of
Okay.
stay into myself, and my
Yep.
thoughts stay into myself.
So your behavior changes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things in the scenario I pose, I will I'll say hone in, I'll go to
Yep.
and use
And
body
that's a
proximity.
facilitator
Right, that is
technique,
a facilitator
absolutely.
to check.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I discover it is off topic or it is a sidebar, then my physical response tends to be a constriction, like a tightening,
Okay. Yeah.
or my nostrils flare.
Okay.
So those are very telltale. Again, and it's dependent upon what I
Here.
hear
Sure.
them talking about.
Yeah.
But those are the typical.
Responses or
Responses,
reactions to
yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so whether it's a word, a behavior, topics that are you're hearing or someone is broaching, right? We do react. Our emotions take over and change our behavior. And it's important for you to recognize when your button is being pushed so that you can work towards perhaps resetting that reaction. So, homework, a task for you, we aren't going to talk about it today, but is to go out and identify what are things that really do bother you or that, I'm going to say tap dance all over that hot button. If you have children, family members, they usually know what they are, those hot buttons, and they can tap dance all over them as well, right? And part of the process of rebooting your communication is recognition. What is that hot button for you? The second element is, once you identify what those hot buttons are, is to flip the switch, so to speak, and recognize that some of the things that you might be saying could trigger an emotion in someone else. So how can we change that emotion? So there's a trigger event that occurs. For the most part, people function at a rational level when it comes to communication. An event happens, something, hot button, and they take off in an emotional state, heightened state of awareness. But the reality is they can't always stay there. So there's a leveling or a pause in their energy. And at that point, the conversation that comes to them, the words that are being said to them, is key. Whether they're going to go and take off again, or whether they're going to come back down to that rational level, right? So we're going to focus on, can you think of, does anything come to mind off the top of your head? A word, phrase, behavior, we're talking about behaviors as well because that is part of communication, that you say that triggers an emotion in someone else. And I'll give you an example. Again, I'm using my customer service background. You need to. And you can almost see the behavior with the words that looks like this. Because it's directive, right? Or how about this one? Calm down. My favorite 2 words in the whole wide world, right? And if you put all those together, you need to calm down.
Right.
What kind of an emotion could that trigger in someone else, especially if they're in a heightened state? This might happen, comes back at you with words attached to it, right? Can you think of anything that you might say in your professional environment, even at home? We know the whole men and women and Venus and Mars and all that kind of thing occur as well.
I say really a lot, like really, and I say it a lot.
Okay.
That's funny.
So
and both work and like really, and it triggers and it kind of puts them on attack.
Don't you believe
bit.
me,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I do say that word a lot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
my go-to.
Right.
Yeah, which could be, I mean, hot button for someone else, depending upon the interpretation of or the inflection of your voice and how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Question, really?
Really?
What? Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds surprising
A lot
because
of lower tone, like really, and that kind of.
that's a condescending kind of,
Yes,
perhaps.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am guilty of that. Yes.
Yeah, well, and we all have them, whether we recognize them or not, whether we know them or not.
Yeah.
So I guarantee here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave here today going through this mini training, and you're going to start to have aha moments. Oh, that's what she was talking about. Oh, that's a trigger for me. Oh, that. And why? All I've done is raised your consciousness.
Right.
That's all we've done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, if we can refresh our messages, those trigger words, those words that we may not realize are trigger words for someone else, right? We move into the 3rd element, and that is recharging. I used the word flip earlier, flipping your words. How can you rephrase your message? Now, I'm not saying change the message. Don't say that. That's not what I'm saying, so please hear me correctly. What I'm saying is, whatever your message is, if it promotes an emotion, a common emotion, you get it frequently when you say it, how can you change that message? How can you use different words? So, for example, you need to calm down. How do we change you need to calm down? When, in a customer service setting, bill's wrong, I was billed for something, I wasn't billed for it, I didn't get the service, whatever the reason was, someone is in a heightened state of emotion. They're in a customer service position, they're calling in, I need help. And they're going up one side and down the other, and you're really there to help them. How can you say, Tony, you need to calm down without triggering an emotion? Ideas? Anything? How do you... Let's see what your customer service skills are like. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I think you kind of said, like, I'm here to help.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Offer support.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's also important, though, to recognize the emotion.
Well, so I was gonna say, like, so neutral, like to try to neutralize. So you're feeling the impact of their emotional state. So to try to bring it down a notch.
Yeah.
To I'm here to help, or then to take what they've said and say it in a supportive or empathetic way.
Right.
That it does sound like you really were overcharged.
Absolutely.
Let me help with that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
validation of
Right.
the emotion,
Right, yeah.
right? Acknowledging their emotion. You do sound really upset, and that's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's really just recognizing. You know, I hear you. I hear that you're upset. Yeah. I am here to help you. And there's usually a 3rd element that should happen. Now, this is transitioning into customer service training, but there's usually a 3rd element that happens, and that is provide them with, you're setting a limit, really, is what you're doing. You're saying to them, if you continue to speak this way, or again, you have to get very specific to what's happening, you know.
Yeah.
Direct that language at me, or however, you know, I really like you to not use those words, you know, if they're swearing at you or something. I'm more than, let me try to help you. So you really have to address the behavior as well. Now again, that comes with comfort level, it comes with experience, so it comes with a lot of things. But flipping your words, so you need to calm down so I can help you. I recognize, I hear that you are upset. I am here to help you. I want to help you. Is maybe something to say is there a way that we can come to an agreement on the issue and move forward? I hear you. I recognize you. Let's move forward. Perhaps is another way of saying it, right? So in conclusion, it's important for all of us in the world for communication to be conscious about the words that we are using. So one, I should say, you recognize what your hot buttons are so that you can adjust or reset your emotional responses in a conversation. Recognize the words that might trigger emotion in someone else. So that's a deeper dive. That's what is it that I'm saying and how is the other person responding to me. So that's not an overnight thing. That might be as you say these words or phrases or even behaviors, is notice what's happening when people respond to you as they trigger, or you know, as their emotions are triggered. And then the last one is focusing on refreshing your words so that you can really, I want to say control the emotions, but we can't ever control someone else's emotions, but we can attempt to control the situation, right? So thank you. I appreciate it. For those of you out there watching, if you're interested in this training or any additional topic, please reach out to me, Nancy Nicholas. You can drop a message right here on this recording, and I'll reach out to you to discuss your training needs. Thanks.